It's Wednesday, June 10th. It's 11:30, and some of us are here virtually, and some of us are here in person, so we'll go ahead and get started. Tracy, did you want to take roll?
Sure, we can do that. Joe Gatto.
Here.
Matt McCoy.
Here.
Sarah Kowalski. Steve Gear.
Here.
I believe Kyle Mertz indicated he was not available. Gary Lorenz.
Here.
Ted Weaver.
Here.
Chris Coleman.
I know he was signing in, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Stephanie
momentarily.
Riva.
Sorry, it was on mute.
Chris, is that you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie Riva.
Here.
Jeff Walters.
Here.
Bob Andewig.
Here.
Scott Brennan.
Here.
Andy Lunan.
Here.
Is there anyone else participating that I have not called?
Elizabeth's on, Elizabeth Prosciutti.
Okay, thank you.
Tracy, is there anybody from the public on too?
I don't believe so.
All right. Item number 3 is vote on the approval of the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Item number 4 is approval of the meeting minutes from May 13th.
I have one question. And
Sure.
I didn't see anything wrong with the minutes, but I noticed, caught my attention after reviewing other board meeting minutes, that we seem to be the only board that doesn't list who makes the motion and then the second. And I didn't know if we needed to or not. So we don't need to solve that today, but we don't list that in our minutes.
I'm looking at you for that answer. I don't think you have to.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to ask a question.
Any other discussion?
Joe, can you just restate what Sarah said because she's not coming through on the mic?
Okay, sure. She asked if we needed to put down on our meeting minutes who made the motion and who seconded it. And I deferred to Scott, and he said that we did not need to list that.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Report, item number 5 is a report and vote of the draft 2021-2024 Transportation Improvement Program. Saroshi, I believe, is going to give us an update on that.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. If you could just move this the slide to the next one. Yeah, so as you all know, the MPO is required to develop a transportation improvement program annually, which includes a list of all federally funded projects within the region for the next 4 federal fiscal years. So the MPO has been working for the last few months on developing the draft federal fiscal year 2021 through 2024 TIP. We have reached out to all our member communities to receive feedback on projects that have received federal funding. So with the input received from them, the draft TIP has now been developed, and it's up on the MPO website for review and comment. We are going through a public comment period right now for about 45 days. The draft TIP is expected to be submitted to the Iowa DOT on June 15, 2020. And the final TIP is due to the DOT on July 15th. During that time, we will also hold an online public input meeting, which is scheduled on June 24th at 5 p.m. The information to access that public meeting will be posted on the MPO webpage. And following the public comment period and after receiving feedback from the DOT, as well as our member communities and the public, we are going to incorporate everything that needs to be updated as well as changed or corrected. We'll make those updates, and the final document will be submitted to the DOT on July 15, 2020. So with that, if you have any questions about the draft federal fiscal year 2021 through 2024 TIP, I will be happy to answer at this time. Otherwise, we are seeking approval of the draft TIP at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions?
I don't know if this is a question or a comment, but as things get added to the TIP over, you know, the last couple of decades, it opens us up to projects getting state or federal funding that is in a different timeline than what we've actually proposed in the long-range transportation plan. And you know, I think over the long horizon, all of these projects are good and necessary, but there's obviously priorities that we should have as a metro area. And I just want to make sure that as we add these, that we are not giving up on having a priority, that they're not all equal, you know, in terms of the timing of when they're to be done.
It seems like all of them ought to be looked at annually. We all change our CIP programs based on what's going on at a particular time. So we can have a master list of projects, but depending on what's going on in our world, we may need to change the timing. Not that we're trying to help somebody over somebody else, but it's priorities change. We all do that at our own level.
I'm not sure if you heard Mayor Kier. Did everybody hear him virtually?
Yeah.
I could hear him, and Mayor, I think what you say is wise and accurate. But what I hope that we avoid in the future is that the funding sources, you know, take the widening of I-80 on the west side of our transportation area. You know, that had funding and a study before we ever amended our project, and so we were kind of forced into that corner. And I think Todd's comments and the pushback that our MPO staff had on that project and the process are good evidence that we just need to make sure that the other funding partners respect the work that we do as a metro and the prioritization we give. Yes, it can always change over time, but we should be the ones changing it, not external funding sources.
It might be directed at you, Andy.
Not me personally.
Not you personally, but
Maybe
Yeah, and I don't know, Andy, how much that had to do with part of that, which doesn't make sense to me, is in the 4th district. I mean, that makes no sense when Joaquin West Moines was doing the Grand Prairie Parkway interchange. Dockstetter ended up managing it because Paul Trambino said this makes no sense to manage this out of Atlanta. So I don't know if part of the disconnect was it was in District 4. I think we're all proponents of expanding District 1, not that we don't want to load you guys up, but it doesn't make sense to have different districts on it. But obviously, I mean, as you guys look at your priority, that was a huge thing for you, and you guys brought it forward. Someone asked me the first time I heard about it, I said, when I got a letter to R&R that the DOT wanted to do soil boring tests on our property, that was the first time I knew they were even looking at it. So obviously, the DOT felt it's a huge priority. And somehow, I think it's just a matter of giving all of us, you know, a heads up. But again, I don't know if it was a District 4 issue or what it might be, but I think we're all going to advocate to expand District 1's boundaries.
Yeah, I think so. That project was a little different because it was a maintenance project that kind of escalated and, you know, kind of slipped in. And they were in the interstate planning process, and it's like, hey, why don't we just do it? And I don't think we're taking away, you know, it didn't really seemingly, in my opinion, out of our program, take anything away from us other than maybe the study that we were working on. Yeah. But, you know, beyond that, you know, I think also the interstate work is obviously good for the region too. So I see that as a proponent of this, but you know, we had identified the long range plan, you know, for a couple of years in the future. So I don't see that is, I don't know how to hold that plan to those things either. I don't know if that's how precise we get on that.
I mean, I think the disconnect was the communication, and part of that is the District 4 and the District 1. And so we need to work on that.
Yeah, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised to see it because, I mean, annually Jordan Creek gets between 20 and 24 million customers. And they all use that interchange or the Mill Civic interchange. So it's everybody in the metro, it's everybody in the state. We ought to be glad that we got that there. It's going to get stronger with Dave and Buster's and everything else. It's a huge amenity for central Iowa. And it literally carries millions of people in and out of there every year. So I was seeing people back up on the interstate system. To me, it was a huge need. We didn't push for it to get accelerated, but I was glad when at least I got the permission slip to do soil borings. It was getting moved up because it's a huge issue out there.
And the other thing, hindsight, the surfacing that's out there, the asphalt that's on top is about 17, 18 years old also. So it's like you invest in resurfacing this and not provide capacity. So in that case, that's what I understood from my District 4 partners.
Any other discussion, comments?
One thing that I'll note is on the policy agenda next week, Andy will be there to give the annual update on the DOT's projects. We typically do that prior to the tip coming through, but just with COVID and the Scott Dockstetter's retirement and everything, we put that off a little bit. So we're a little bit late, but that'll give you a chance to hear what all the DOT projects are as well, directly from the DOT that will be that's in their 5-year program. That'll be in the tip here.
Well, I guess, Todd, let me ask you this. Do we, and if we don't, should we go into all the DOT commission meetings and not just the ones when they're in central Iowa? So we can keep up too. It just seems like with our planning area and all the stuff we have got going on, it would make sense to go to the commission meetings.
Well, we could certainly start doing that. We could also just, and we had some discussion of that with Andy and some of the folks from District 4, just having kind of more regular communication at that level. So this doesn't jump out at us like it did this time.
Yeah, when I think you can attend those meetings without physically driving to their location. So it'd be a matter of Todd, you or whoever on your staff you want to assign.
Yeah, we can do that. That's
And
not
it'd be nice. I mean, I'm not looking for more work, or none of us, but it'd be nice when you get the agendas to send all of us the agenda.
Right.
Sure.
So you can also attend the workshops online, I believe, too. And that's where they, more like this meeting, where they took a little talking about projects and stuff.
Maybe between the three of us, we can split some time up. If we need to attend or be part of it online. I think between the three of us, we probably could do something like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I know when they were in Des Moines.
Yeah.
I went through all the projects that we coordinated with them, all the stuff going on in the metro. They were very appreciative because I don't think anybody else does that.
Right.
And so you want to go in and say, look, your money's being well spent. You guys are here and you're looking at it, but we're telling you how it really functions. And I'm just sitting here thinking, probably shame on us for not, why just go in there in the Des Moines area?
Yeah, agree. Well, those are great comments. This is a voting item. Item 5 is.
I'll move it.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Item number 6 is report and vote 2023 TIP amendment request. Saroshi, I believe you're going to take this one too.
Yes, thank you. So the item before you is an amendment request to the federal fiscal year 2020 through 2023 TIP. The amendment request is from DART. And just to refresh your memory, you might recall we brought this item before you last month and for approval. And following that, we learned that the changes proposed had not yet been reviewed and approved by the DART Commission, as it had been postponed to their June meeting. So, so we are now bringing it back before you. It has been reviewed and approved by the DART Commission at their June meeting, I believe the first week of June. So in summary, the amendment request includes a handful of adjustments to the DART's funding programs that are funded, that receive federal funding, as well as an update to the total project amount for the new operations and maintenance facility that received new federal funding, and the corresponding local match, 20% local match as a result of the new funding. Your agenda packet included a much more detailed breakout of what those adjustments were. And we are essentially asking your approval to amend the federal fiscal year 2020 through 2023 TIP to incorporate those changes proposed by DART. With that, I believe that Elizabeth from DART is here, and I would invite her if she wants to add anything to what I mentioned. Otherwise, we'll be happy to take any questions, and we are seeking your approval to amend the TIP.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Item number 7 is report and vote of the excessive surface transportation block grant funding policy. Todd?
Yeah, thank you. The staff has developed a policy, draft policy related to excess STBG funds. We've had some excess funds that we've used in the past and really didn't have a set policy, so it was requested that we develop a policy. This was drafted and shared with the STBG subfunding committee. It was also shared with TEC. We've incorporated some comments from them. Essentially, when staff is able to determine that there is some excess funding available based on information provided by the Iowa DOT or a member governments returning funds for a project that either came in under budget or got delayed for one reason or another, we would take a look at that and see if it fell over a certain threshold. In this case, if the funding is below $250,000, we would just hold on to that fund and those funds until the next fiscal year and put them in with the regular STBG process. Or if it's over that, we would let policy committee be aware that those funds are available and start the process for a new funding cycle with the excess funds. To use the excess funds, we would select from projects that are already currently programmed in the last 3 years of the TIP. So those projects could get that funding put into their project stream. And then we'd have the funding subcommittee review the request and develop a recommendation that would go through our committee approval process, and then work with the project applicant and get that funding pushed into the TPMS system, which is what the DOT uses to track funding, and get it awarded to the project so it can move forward. There may be a rare instance where there's a regional important project of significance that we would want to put those excess funds on, and it might not be programmed in the current TIP. So there might be a case where the policy committee would want to move those excess funds onto some project that hadn't previously been in the TIP, so we allowed for that. I did receive one comment from Mayor Karofsky, and that some of the acronyms spell those out, so we'll change those so that we have those fleshed out. Otherwise, we'd recommend approval of this policy. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, and I like how you just described it. I think the frustration or surprise last time was we didn't know there was money, and by the time we saw it, there was already a recommendation to use it on the water trails. So we had all the water trails people here, and it's hard to have a policy conversation on the potential use of it when you had all the supporters already here. So as long as the recommendation comes through the committee first, and it doesn't show up on an agenda without those conversations, I think it makes a whole lot of sense for all of us. I mean, that really put us in an awkward situation, quite frankly.
And Todd or Dylan, I don't know if you could help us walk through 3.2. I had just sent in not a negative or positive statement, just wanting us to think through. You know, how I interpreted 3.2 was that we could consider awarding money to projects that are already moving forward. And of course, if I have a project that's moving forward, of course I would welcome more money. But the question is that if it's moving forward, is it already funded? Number one, and then two, does that help us as an MPO move forward the goals and projects of the region if there are existing projects that are moving forward? So I appreciate that that's in there, but it was interesting.
Well, I think the main thing on 3.2 was one, trying to run this cycle with the current normal funding cycle, just so we weren't doubling up meetings on a lot of people. As far as, we also thought it would make sense to, since we already had chosen projects but maybe not fully funded those projects, that excess funds should go first to those projects, and not a new project. So that was the reason that we put in that the project applicants would select from the currently programmed projects. Does that help answer that question?
All right. Any other questions or comments? I would agree. I'm glad that we've got something like this in place, and that did put us in a difficult position. So this is a voting item.
I'll move it.
Second, Stephanie.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Item number 8 is report and optional vote of fiscal year 2021 Unified Planning Work Program and Budget Amendment. Dylan.
Thank you. Last month, we approved the fiscal year 2021 work program and budget. After the approval, we realized that we left a project out, and that was the project that is the City of West Des Moines University Avenue Corridor Study. This received STP or STBG funds last year, FY 2019, with the federal fiscal year 2023 STBG funds. And they had requested, kind of during the process of us developing the plan, they had requested that those funds be moved up so they could use them. And there was just miscommunication. We didn't see that. So in order to allow West Des Moines to get reimbursed for the STBG funds that they've received, we have to put this into the work program. So we included in the packet an amended document. This basically adds $125,000 to the budget. $100,000 of that is the STBG funds that West Des Moines received, so federal funds. The $25,000 is the local match that West Des Moines would put up for that STBG funds. So this doesn't really change the MPO's funds. It doesn't change assessments or the money that the MPO itself is getting. We're just putting it in there so that we can act as a pass-through. So West Des Moines would request the funds of us. We would in turn request those from the DOT. DOT would pay us. We'd in turn pay that back to City of West Des Moines. We had to do something like this about 5 years ago for some projects in Des Moines and Norwalk. So it's not something we do a lot. So it's a little bit of a goofy process, different than the norm. But it's something that we can easily take care of with this amendment.
Well, and actually the contract we awarded was for $349,000.
Right, and we didn't, yeah, and we could, yeah, we only put in the local match that's required to match the STBG funds rather than inflate everything by even more. If we want to clarify that, we can. And in the work program, it does clarify that, that the total project amount's about $350,000.
Yeah, and I think Clyde's paying about 50 of it because it's University Avenue to 235 from 22nd Street to 50th Street.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering where it was.
It's, I mean, so you got the Governor Square, all that stuff that's in there. You got 40,000 cars a day on University.
Okay.
But yeah, I appreciate if you add a little bit more to that. One, it shows Clive's contributing too. It's a huge undertaking. Now, Confluence ended up getting it, but we had 22 proposals from all over the United States. I mean, that's really an active area. And we got an opportunity to figure out what it really wants to be now. That used to be the hot area. It's got some neat things in there, but it's struggling a bit just because of all the other changes in our world and whatnot. So anyway, I think, Dylan, it would be helpful to add I think it would mean more to people when they understand those other items.
Well, yeah, putting where it's at first and foremost, instead of just saying 600 acre section, that would be helpful to say what corridor actually, university.
I actually think there's something to be learned from the exercise that you're going through as well, to identify underperforming tracts of prime real estate that are connected to, that are connected to roads that are essential. I think that we could do as well in Des Moines, right? Some of those things.
I agree with you 100%.
We have those same issues, and I don't think we think about them the way they thought about them as they developed this plan.
I mean, the other thing, Andy, this is kind of all the DOT we've had preliminary meetings is, you look at, I mean, with all the new stormwater standards, it is so hard to redevelop areas to try to bring them into compliance with stormwater today.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those centers, you look at 22nd Street, that whole shopping center was built when we had no stormwater standards.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure it's inhibited Des Moines' ability to redevelop like ours. So we're coming up with a regional stormwater solution. So the city wants to say, we're gonna take our stormwater fees and create a regional solution so people can actually redevelop and they don't spend all their money on stormwater.
Yep.
And part of it's gonna be the ability to try to use the Blue Stem Creek or whatever along 235 to temporarily store stuff. But preliminary analysis, stormwater, we can do a regional solution for $9 million. If we can't use the right of way, it's like 18 million. I mean, and we take away future development land because we gotta store it somewhere.
You guys have started that, right?
HR Green's done the study, and we've had some preliminary conversations with at the time with Scott and Mark, and we were asked to go back and restudy some stuff. So we're gonna have to come back to you, but it's gonna save us 50% of the cost if we can use part of the DOT right away. And actually, we solved a water problem on 22nd Street where it still gets on one of the ramps. But anyway, we get back to this whole stormwater issue, and I'm sure you see it. A lot of our people
All
say,
the time.
I can't redevelop my site because the stormwater is too expensive.
Yeah, we've had that discussion.
So we're
All
trying
the time.
all that right now in the area with Valley West Mall. When you look at it, I mean, that is the bullseye, and we've got to be able to figure it out. We're going to be stuck with properties that aren't doing what they need to be doing, and we still have a problem.
Quick comment on this. I think it's a great project, and I'm excited to see how it unfolds. When I think about the long-range transportation plan and the top goals of taking care of our existing infrastructure, I think this is spot on with it. So good work. I don't know if it's well beyond the boundaries, Mayor Gear, but one of the disappointing decisions that we made as a region over the last 25 years, and Andewig and I might be the only ones around that long. Mayor, you were probably on the school board at the time, is we had an alternative plan to connect university to university from 73rd to 22nd. And I always thought that was a bad idea. And I actually think it probably would have happened had a West Des Moines City Council person not lived along the corridor where it needed to go. And I just wonder if that's not worthy long-term of discussion of the MPO. It would bring together more jurisdictions, but it's a hard area to get to, that you're 600 acres if you're coming from the east. And likewise, it's hard to get to 73rd and University on the east. And we came very close to funding a project that would connect those two about 20 or 22 years ago.
Yeah, I remember that because I was just on the council, and Councilman Parks lived there. I don't think Councilman Omar is still recovered from not doing that. But I think one of the big issues too was the Wittern Group. And I know we don't have anybody here from Clyde, but I'm hearing through the rumor mill that Clyde may pay winter's groups to move.
Yeah, we've had discussions.
And I think that would reopen that whole opportunity. It makes sense. It made no sense to spend all the millions of dollars to keep that jog at University Avenue. It just didn't.
Yeah.
You know, you take out Earl May and 7 or 8 homes
Yeah.
and deal with the Wittern Group and you had a straight shot. So I think it all makes all the sense to look at it again, especially if Clive pays Wittern Groups to move.
Hey, Mayor Gary, this is Ted Weaver. I'm on, and so yeah, you're right. And we also have a big flood buyout program in that entire area where we're buying out the residents in order to move all of that into so that because it's just basically a floodplain.
That was one of the reasons I was thinking about it, because you are doing a tremendous amount of flood work in there right now, and maybe all these things open it up. And my guess is that the retail and the redevelopment people in your 600 acres will all say that better transportation access is one of the keys. And it's hard to think that's going to get any better unless we do something significant like this.
Yeah, and this is a joint project between both West Des Moines and Clyde, because obviously we're on the other side of University Avenue there, and we've got a number of retail businesses that have gone out of business that we're looking at what can we do as well to redevelop those.
Probably fortunate we haven't finished the study due to this COVID thing, because I think that's going to change the view of some people as well. So, you know, this is cutting edge stuff right now.
Well, this is an optional vote item. If there's not any more discussion.
I move it. Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Item number 9 is mobilizing tomorrow amendment. Zach.
Staff has developed the draft index for the illustrative project list. You might recall that following the approval of our long-range plan back in November, the executive committee requested that we develop an illustrative project list, and that process took a couple months. It was reviewed by several of our committees as well as an executive committee to do that list. Now we've incorporated that list into an actual appendix that we're going to be amending into the long-range plan. We've opened a public comment period that will be, or we will be opening a public comment period next week that will last through July 31st. So we'll collect any public comment we have on the draft appendix and bring that back to you for your approval at the August committee meetings. The draft appendix includes a description of the illustrative projects, what illustrative projects are, what the process is to include them in the plan, as well as to include them if we do end up getting money to build those projects. It also includes a table for the projects and then a map showing the location of those projects. As mentioned, they'll go off public comment. We can come back to this committee for final approval in August. But if you have questions about the draft index, I'm happy to take those questions at this time.
Anybody have any questions? Comments? Thanks, Zach. Item number 10 is a report on the transit facility update.
I'll give you a quick update on transit facility when we last spoke about it. I'd say we're slowly moving along. The environmental assessment went back to FRA's legal sufficiency team for review. They had a few additional comments that they want us to incorporate, so we're working with the FRA team. The FRA team is actually tackling a lot of those comments. We have a few that we have to work through with Des Moines Industrial. SHPO has reviewed and is providing comments on the EA as well. So we're working to incorporate those. The grant agreement has been reviewed by the Office of the Secretary. They had a few comments, and we're working with FRA right now and Des Moines Industrial to get those comments addressed. Nothing really substantial. This had some concerns about what performance measures we were going to use to evaluate the project. Had some suggestions for updating those and changing those to match more closely with what we had in the application. So working to do that. And then in addition, the MPO has been working with our legal counsel to develop a sub-agreement between Des Moines Industrial and the MPO for the build grant. So that's where we're at right now. We have a phone call with the FRA on Monday. So hoping to have a little bit more information about where we're standing as far as schedule goes. But as of right now, we're hoping that by the end of the month, the document will go out for public review and it will is to have that all ready to go. So once the public comment period wraps up, we can sign the agreement and move forward with the construction of the project.
So there's not been any construction activities today?
Not yet. No.
They went through the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it comes to the council, I believe, at our next council meeting.
And we've had some emails going back and forth. I love these updates because I think this thing is a game changer, especially now in COVID. You're looking at how much more this distribution stuff is ramping up. But would you just give us the high level schedule as we get the updates, you know, when it's supposed to be complete, how far along we are? Because I can't even remember when they're supposed to open or when they think they're going to open.
Their plan is to open in 2020,
2021 currently.
Okay. You know, it all kind of hinges on getting they can't do any construction until the EA is done. Otherwise, they'd lose the federal money. So that has to happen first. If we say the document goes to the public at the end of the month, then we should be on schedule for them the grant agreement to be finalized in September. And if we have a mild winter, it'll allow them to do some construction, at least some groundwork is what their plan is. Do groundwork in the fall, and then be ready to hit the ground running when the construction season starts in 2021 and have it operational in 2021.
Maybe you can just help us and say site work by this day, whatever, just a couple high level ones. And I'm assuming that any of these executive orders that are supposed to be cut through all this environmental stuff are not impacting this project, or are they?
As of right now, it hasn't, you know, helped speed the process up at all for us on this project. There's been a lot of back and forth with the environmental document. Honestly, a lot of it's been very, you know, semantics, you know, changing the way sentences are structured and stuff. It really isn't content based. It's more pretty minor things, I guess, in my opinion.
Well, the PR around these executive orders makes it sound like they eliminated all the requirements and you can start building tomorrow. But I haven't read it, you know.
Yeah, as of
Yeah. Well, this is great, and I'm glad we got the partners we got. I'll feel better when it's actually under construction.
Me and you both. I think all of us will.
I agree. I've been working on this project for over 8 years. So
Yeah.
it'll be nice to see it.
Well, there's stuff that can come up to kill projects.
Yeah. Well, it went through the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Fine. They've got a sidewalk issue inside the facility that is going to be brought to the council, and we'll be able to hopefully solve that. But that was the only issue that we had.
Good.
Item number 11 is report on the Purple Heart Highway update. Todd.
Yeah, thank you. HNTB is working on the analysis, updating the analysis of the geometrics right now. They're getting some additional traffic information from us and the DOT. They're working on that. We'll have a coordination meeting with the DOT. Andy, expect a phone call from Mark Pearson the next day or so to make sure everybody's on the same page as we go finish this up. The cost estimates will be updated once we get the risk analysis finished, and they think they can wrap up most of this either by the end of this month or into next month, which is ahead of their proposed schedule of finishing everything. And they're also starting the research on the speed and weight restrictions. So that's moving forward. And I know we've been talking with the congressional delegation about helping with, and specifically the weight issue. The speed is more of a state issue. And I know some of the members of community members have also reached out to our congressional delegation about this project. So things are moving forward. We should have some more information to share with you next month on the particulars of any updates that need to be ironed out.
And then Todd, you sent us some dates of maybe visiting with the new director. Have we pinned that down?
Yeah, we did. I was going to mention that later, but I can do it now. It land on July 7th at 11 o'clock in Ames as the date. I'll send out a meeting notice to everyone. A couple people, I don't know that worked, but it worked for the majority of folks. So we'll be in a conference room up at the DOT headquarters. They do have some policies and procedures for entering the facility, and I'll share that with everyone as well. Scott's assistant will be sending me that information. So
You plan on attending that with us or one of the staff members?
right now I'm planning on it.
Okay.
We'll probably be in a hazmat suit, but I'll be attending.
I understand. That's why I asked. Any other comments, questions? Todd? Item number 12 is a report on the water trails update. Todd?
Yep, thank you. The design team is continuing to move forward, and they've reached the kind of one of their first critical deadlines with the 10% design completion. They finished that and are starting to be reviewed by the city, county. The staff at the MPO will review it, and we'll share more of it when we have some more details on it and get feedback back to them. The NEPA public meeting closed last week, received about 200 comments, a little over 200 comments. Most were overwhelmingly positive, a few negative comments, which would be expected, mostly related to the cost. We also got conceptual approval from SHPO about the proposed dam modifications. That was a big milestone as well to get their conceptual approval anyway. That would mean we'd have no adverse effect on historic properties. Again, a big win for the project. ISG, the consultant engineering firm that's working on kind of the access points, they've got a grant application with the Corps' real estate division for the Prospect Park area. They're developing that. That'll be submitted in the next couple of weeks. Continuing to have conversations with the DOT and the US DOT and the congressional offices about a grant extension. Had some pretty serious conversations with Senator Grassley's office. They think they're getting similar comments from a number of other areas across the country. So they think there's a fair likelihood of getting an extension in the next, either the extension of the transportation bill or another stimulus package. That's where they would put that in. Work has been ongoing for the operations and maintenance coordination. That committee's been working, and also been working with the water emergency team from the city on how to do emergency response, developing plans for that and how that affects the design so that we can incorporate the features they need into the design. And then lastly, the governance committees have kind of kicked off. They have a couple consultants helping with that. Nikki Severson with Isaacson and Severson Consulting, and Scott Racker from the Ray Center helping develop the governance processes on maintenance and operations agreements. And so they'll be working through that. And then Dustin Miller from NIMASTER, an attorney, is helping to start draft some MOUs that would be related to those areas. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Joe, I might give an update on Raccoon River Park. We should be opening that boathouse any day now.
Okay.
But they actually built a portage from the lake to the river, and people are using it. If you go on the backside of the lake, you can get out and you can go down a really nice rock incline road into the river, and people are actually taking their kayaks and stuff and doing that. Now we got to figure out where can we get them out and we can actually get them back. And we're talking to the person who has the contract on the boathouse. Can you get some big vans? Can we figure out how to do that? But actually, it's exciting to physically see the connection.
Sure.
To see people using it.
Yeah, I don't think there's a doubt that they'll use it if we build it. It's just getting it done and getting the Corps to participate. So have you had discussion, particularly with the Corps, about the Scott Street area there?
Yeah, I haven't, but the team that has had some initial conversations with them, and that's what's led to the grant application, is what it actually is called, to further those conversations along, essentially paying them money.
And the good thing is the bridge is closed and we don't have fishermen on there right now, but that's a real hot spot for
Yeah.
them as they
And part-
want to
Yeah,
get back.
my father-in-law talks about fishing down there in the late 60s.
Yeah.
Best fishing spot in the state.
Yeah. They all worked at, he said Ma Bell, and they all left work and went down there and fished after work.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So we'll need to
That's why
definitely,
fishing from that bridge.
we'll need to address that and make it accessible for folks to get in there. We're gonna, I'm gonna hear it for sure.
Part of the design does incorporate additional fishing locations and accessing the river a little easier for fishing and some additional amenities for that.
Okay.
Fish cleaning stations and everything.
Yeah,
Nice stuff.
would be great. Any other questions, comments? Todd, thanks. Legislative update from Dylan, item number 13.
Sorry, computer froze for a sec there. Still freezing. Anyway, don't have a slide for it, but last week the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee released their proposed transportation bill. So this would be the update to the current FAST Act, the Transportation Authorization Bill. So it's called Invest in America Act. In looking at some of the preliminary, and there's a link to some information about it in the agenda packet. But in looking at in terms of the funding figures that they've proposed anyway, it'd be a pretty significant increase to, transportation dollars and, both for projects as well as for planning funds and so forth. Keep in mind, this is just the initial proposal. They still have to go through all the negotiations. It's still an election year. So I don't know how likely we'll see anything changing soon, but at least it's a start. So we can kind of see what the direction, at least the thought process might be going forward. So we'll keep monitoring this and bringing forward any updates we see to it. I don't know if Todd, if you have any updates, any additional updates you want to share to that?
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. This is the House proposal. The Senate hasn't really released their side of things. So, and it was pretty much a democratically driven piece of legislation. So there's that piece that plays into it as well. It does provide additional funding, as Dylan mentioned. It also puts some additional requirements on MPOs and has some additional core programs, 3 new ones, I believe, that relate to environment and hazard mitigation and a couple other things. So the funding gets spread out a little differently, even though there is a fairly significant increase to it. So we'll continue to monitor this and bring you back any updates as well as any Senate proposal that gets any traction.
All right. Thank you. Item number 14 is Gunner report on upcoming events.
Good afternoon, everyone. Not much happening in the event space these days. Tomorrow Plan Speaker Series continues to be on hold in terms of scheduling future speakers. I think conversations are going to start picking up here soon, though. In the meantime, to satiate your curiosity about Speaker Series, we do have the Greg Schill talk posted on the Tomorrow Plan Speaker Series website. It was a really good one, very well received and very well attended. So if you're interested, please check it out. That's it for me, unless you have any questions.
Any questions? Gunner, thank you. Item number 15 is a vote on the approval of the MPO policy agenda and underneath our packet. I move it. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes.
Just a quick comment, and maybe Ted feels differently, but that project that we're dealing with, the 600 acres, should probably reference Clive too.
Yeah, I think we put that in. I think we added that as we talked a little bit about it. I think that should be one of the.
I'll make that change for the final agenda.
Thank you.
Listen first, if Ted wants to put more money in.
Tried to help, Steve.
We'll let you take the lead, Steve.
And all the help we can get.
Item number 16 is other non-action items of interest to the committee. Anyone? I just, I guess one item would be next Thursday. Do we want to do it virtually? Do we want to give an option of doing it this way? And I'll leave that up to what you guys think.
I don't like seeing you in person.
I think it's nice to have the option. People that are-
I mean, I have no problem coming down and doing it. That'd be nice.
Will there be enough room to set up the whole?
That's what I don't know that.
The problem with the full committee is we won't have enough room to have everybody socially distanced. So we could offer it to exec to be there, but probably not the whole committee.
Well, this is Stephanie, and since my council meeting starts at 5, I will call in. So there's one seat for you.
Okay. I guess we can give the option and we can see how many, I mean, do we know how many can actually fit in this room? Has anyone thought of that?
Because didn't we cut the committee down to 26?
Yeah.
50 something.
Yeah, I don't know.
And maybe
We might be able to fit people in there. They just might not be able to be in a nice semicircle like you are now.
You would have people's back to each other most likely.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you can figure out how many can fit. If the first 16 who say I'm coming, then they get it. I mean, I've been in events like that says we have X number of people, and whoever signs up first, you can be here in person. Everybody else is
I'm sure not everybody's going to want to come in person. So I think that,
I'm not coming in person.
yeah, I think I kind of like doing it this way, and I think we should give everybody the option.
We'll,
That's all
we'll,
right.
finalize the spacing and then, yeah, we'll get something out.
Okay. So our next meeting date is, for this committee, is July 8th, and our policy committee is June 18th, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.